Hey, hi Tashneem.
Hi, Ashish.
Yeah, just let me check if I think some other people were joining. Okay, just let me check internally. You have any questions, Tashneem?
No, Ashish. Like, I have done the record triggered flow. I have not completed every flow, but I have done record triggered flow and some other flow as well, but not everything. So
Okay.
today we are going to start the development, right?
Right. That's what I
Okay.
was. Um, I got some message today from somebody else is also going to join, so that's what I'm checking with Lakshmi. Just give me 1 minute.
Sure.
Yeah, so development, do you have any experience with development? Do you have any experience with any of the programming languages in the
No, but yes, I know I have some overview of that, but not like in depth. No, not with any programming language.
okay. So basically you are a engineering graduate or
No,
non-eng
no, no,
from
non-engineering.
which degree basically?
Tourism, tourism management I have done. Like very, like not at all related to this.
Tourism management. Is it MBA?
No, it is like a BBA, like a bachelor's.
Okay, it's a bachelor's, but I think BBA is still good. It still holds the value better than BA or BSc, and that's what I know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it still has a market demand. Okay, so what we need to do is, yeah, so I will be taking accordingly. Basically, I was checking it because so that I can deliver the course accordingly now. All right.
Yes.
So let's continue. Briefly, we will start with what is Apex. Okay, someone is joining. I don't know whether they are joining or not. Let it be. Okay, they're not joining. Okay, no one is joining. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, now in Salesforce, like if we need to communicate to the from the front end to the database. Okay, so there is a I think I have today or yesterday I've shown this. Okay, this basically, if you see the architecture here, okay, on our Salesforce, like we have a front end where you're dealing with the um, uh, you can see the screen, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so on the front end, basically the browser, when you're accessing to your application, let's say you are seeing a screen. Yeah, this first on the left hand side, this is a front end screen. You're seeing some input field. Okay, some input field and some buttons you're seeing on the page. This basically becomes your web page. That is your front end technology. Now, the front end technology, or the UI, which we say, UI stands for user interface. The user interface interacts to the backend. Whenever we are doing something like saving a record or editing a record, deleting a record, it interacts with a backend server. There is a server which basically process your request. So there is a server which processes your request. So in Salesforce, we have a server which understand a language called as Apex. All right. So in Salesforce, whatever interaction from the front end we need to pass through the back end, it goes like front end has three parts: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay. So HTML is basically used to structure your web page. Okay. So HTMLs are basically used to structure your web page where uh, where you will be defining like how what will be visible on your page, like some content you're writing. So it is basically the raw elements of any web page that you are going to add on the page. So HTML plus CSS is basically your front end, where you're designing the web page. Okay, so CSS is used to design the web page, all the cosmetic changes, like adding colors, adding some background color, changing the font color, changing the font size. All such things will be controlled with the help of the CSS. All the designing part, the cosmetic change to a web page. HTML, it is the raw element of a web page. Okay, HTML is very basically the very raw element of your web page, where you're designing the structure, like which input field will be there. Let's say you're taking, previously we have created a flow where you were having some input fields, right? Two input fields or four input fields you are taking. So that designing happens with the help of HTML all the time. On the browser, there is no other language. You have, means there could be some other frameworks, but behind the scene, everything gets converted into the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That is like the core structure of your browser. On all the browsers, it is a core structure. Whether they may use some different framework, like in Salesforce we are having LWC, it is a framework, but behind the scene it will use your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Similarly, your React is a framework. It will be built on some JavaScript library, and it will have some different syntax could be there, but ultimately it is doing the same thing. Everything will be get converted into HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So whenever like you're doing such things, your front end programming, HTML, CSS will be responsible from your web page. JavaScript is something which will be responsible for your logic part. Okay, it is also called as it is also called as client side controller. Okay, JavaScript is also called as client side controller. Then JavaScripts, basically this is responsible for logic. You need to perform some a plus b. You cannot do it directly with the help of HTML and CSS. You cannot do it. Okay, so you need to use functions within the JavaScript. You have to write the functions within the JavaScript to basically let the system know what exactly you want to do. So some two inputs, let's say if you have taken one and two, uh, and you're taking the numerical input 10 and 20. Okay, so addition you cannot directly do it with the help of the HTML, so you will make use of the JavaScript to do the calculation and send the result back. So you will make a request here to your JavaScript will do the whatever processing it will do, and it will send you the request back, so you can display the result back on the screen. Okay, so if only HTML and JavaScript is involved, this completely on the left hand side, these things are basically your front end combined together. Now this Apex server, Apex server is your backend. Database is your backend. All right. So Apex server is also called as server side controller. Okay, it is also called as server side controller, and it combines together like um server side controller is nothing but your backend. Server side controller, I'll write. Okay, so your Apex server and database is nothing but your backend. Okay, front end can only do some preliminary thing. Uh, it cannot uh, means you can create a full-fledged application just with the help of the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript as well. But thing is, you cannot store the data on the front end only. Okay, there is no storage capacity. Some minor cache memory will be there in your JavaScript. Minor, it is in MBs. Okay, so browser holds that cache and cookies, some sort of information it stores, so that if you're reaching out to any particular resource on a regular basis, it can help. to reach out to that particular resource quickly. Okay, you must have cleared your browser cache and cookies all the time. So it is a memory location in your browser which holds some sort of information to quickly interact to a particular website or resource. So whenever you're reaching out to any website, um, they will ask you, they will take the consent, like, do you want, please store the cookies, allow the cookies to store. You must have experienced this. So all such cookies are basically like, it will takes each time you will reach to their website, it will keep on storing some sort of information on their end. Like one of the example I will give, Policy Bazaar. If you have registered ever on the Policy Bazaar, so on Policy Bazaar website, they are doing this cookies sort of tracking. If you have registered with Policy Bazaar, okay, the next time you go to their site, right, their agents will get to know like you are on their site, and they will immediately after 2 to 3 minutes they will call you since you are on the policybazaar.com. So they got a notification through their cookie, and that cookie has notified like you are live now through your browser. They will store the IP address and all. So through that information, they will get to know like you are live on the policybazaar.com. So that means you're interested in buying some sort of policies, might be. So why not? Let's give a call. So they will keep on calling. So I have experienced this multiple time. If I've logged in my system to Policy Bazaar and next time I have gone to the same website, they started calling me because they have my number. So they got to know so that through that cookies that I am on their website. So whatever we are doing on the Policy Bazaar, sometimes there is a chance like they're also tracking like which policy I have searched for, which what is the premium amount I was searching for. All such information. Also, it's possible like they might be tracking it in their backend. I don't know what's their tracking. Okay, but it is a possibility. So such sort of memory is there on the JavaScript side, but it's not like it cannot hold data, full database. It has to be somewhere else because database are very huge. It should require minimum at least like in a bigger application, it is somewhere in 100 GBs or 500 GBs, depends organization to organization. All right. So what I'm saying is the the Apex language acts as a bridge from your front end to back end. But this is not necessary in today's modern JavaScript. With the help of the JavaScript itself, you can make a call to directly bypass the Apex server and save the data directly from the JavaScript to the database. This sort of feature came with the development of the JavaScript now. Directly from the JavaScript, also we can save the data to the backend server in today's scenario talking about. Okay, it can bypass the need of the server, but it has its own pros and cons. It in case like if you're going through server, server calls usually take a lot of time. Okay, server calls usually take a lot of time because you will make a request from JavaScript to Apex to database, and there is like then the database will, once this data is saved, deleted, edited, anything, it will send the response back to the JavaScript. So there is a time which involves. Whereas if you need to do some quick sort of saving directly to the database, this path which we are following, it is very quick, but it since it avoids going through this server, there is a chance of what I would say like some automated thing that would have gone through the Apex server. Uh, there is a possibility like it may not get executed. Okay, I'm just giving you a hypothetical example. Okay, not necessarily. What I would say is, yeah, from JavaScript to backend also we can save the data directly to the database. Now, Apex, most of the time we will be acting as an intermediary. Intermediate, like it will be working as taking the request from the front end to back end and then back sending it back to the front end, like the response back to the front end. So how we will work with the back end uh, is what we are going to learn in development today. So from today basically. So let's see what exactly the Apex server, Apex language is. Okay, what is the Apex language? Basic. So Apex language is a strongly typed object-oriented programming language that allows the developers to execute the flow transaction control statement on Salesforce servers in coexistence with call to the APIs. Now, what does this mean is when it says strongly typed, when it says strongly typed, it means the language must define the data type while declaring any variables. Okay. In Salesforce, whenever we will, like in Apex, whenever we will declare a variable. Now, what is a variable? Will come soon. So it uh, like variables are basically used to store some sort of information, either string, um, number, dates, time, email, such sort of information can be stored with the help of the variables. Okay. Now, if you need to store variables like string is basically used to store the text, like any sentence, if you need to store or a word you need to store, you will make use of a string variable. All right. So string variables are used to store the data in the text format. So in Apex, whenever you are using Apex to store the data in the string format, you have to clearly specify the system that I'm going to use this particular variable. Let's say the variable name is my name. I will use my name variable for storing string. That is any sort of text I'm going to store in this particular variable. Now, the next thing is they are saying is it is an object-oriented programming language. Now, the object-oriented programming language started almost like 25 to 30 years back. Java was not basically the first language, I would say, with object oriented. I think C++ was also an object oriented programming language. Now, what basically is object oriented programming language? It is it is basically a concept in programming where we use concepts like polymorphism. Okay, so we have inheritance, we have interface, we have abstract class, abstract methods, then we have encapsulation, we have classes and objects. So, what is our uh, object-oriented programming language? It is combination of multiple uh, programming concepts. Okay, together it is called as an object oriented programming language. So little bit, if you want to know more about what exactly the object oriented programming language is, you can go to W3 schools. Okay, Java is one of the object oriented programming language. So in Java introduction, I think here somewhere they would have definitely given, yeah, oops, Java oops. So oops is basically object-oriented programming concepts. Okay, so Java oops concepts is basically object-oriented programming concepts. So what does it stands for? Procedural programming is about writing the procedures. So C, or I think C++ was also procedural language in which like we were writing some series of information and it was executing one by one. It was executing one after the other, line by line, it was executing. But in object oriented, we are having classes and methods. Now, what is classes and methods? I'll come to it. Okay, so methods that perform operations on the data. While object oriented programming is about creating objects that contain both data and methods. Now, Object-oriented programming language basics is like it uses class and method. Now, what is a class and method? What is a class and method? I'll explain it here somewhere. I think in one of the session I have covered it previously. This is basically which we have discussed just now, like how the UI server is basically in our case it is Apex server. Okay, and the database how the communication was happening. Okay, so data types. Okay, so anyways, I'll create another board or last time. Okay, first let's understand what is a class and object. Oops, programming or or I think we will this is just an intro session. Let's not go into deep. We will be taking it in everything like of the OOPS concepts, what and how it works. Okay, but I think this is just the intro. Let's not dig much into it. Okay, but what I would say, like if you can read this, just read this W3 schools article Java OOPS, and then you'll come back. If you're not understanding, will be discussing it back because it is what our complete foundation it is of Apex will be relying on. The co- uh, Java language and the Apex language is quite similar. Okay, it is quite similar, and Salesforce is developed on Java only. Okay, Salesforce platform was developed on the Java concepts only, and then it has its own language Apex, which uses almost most of your Java concepts, the concepts of your core Java. But that doesn't mean like you start going and learn Java. It's not required. Although anyone who knows Java, it's easier for them to switch to Apex because all the concepts, mostly like all the concepts are similar. Java is more advanced. You don't require that much coding in Salesforce. So only Java is having two parts, core Java and advanced Java. So only someone who's knowing core Java can easily do the programming on the Apex. So that is basically how the Salesforce platform OOPS programming is needed. So object-oriented programming's basic is like it has classes, methods, it has inheritance. It is basically having other OOPS concepts like polymorphism, inheritance, I have already told, interface, and encapsulation. Okay, an abstract class. So abstract class and abstract method. Few other things might be there. Okay, but major thing is your classes and object. Most of the time, you will be dealing all the time like classes and object. This is like in brief, if we need to understand. Okay, in brief, if you need to understand, classes are basically called as a template. It is used as a template. So here they have given the example what are classes. Classes are template. Let's say if you need to create a building. Okay, you need to create a building. You need a blueprint. The blueprint or the map, how exactly you need to create where exactly you need to create the entrance, where exactly you need to create the kitchen, your bedroom, and all. So, how exactly you will be drafting the template, let's say for the ground floor, same structure, it will be on the first floor, same structure you will be using on the second floor and the third floor and the so on. So you have only made the template once. Template, you are only going to make it once. Objects, like different objects you can create out of the same template. So in case of the building, as I've told, like uh, with one template, uh, multiple floors we have created. But in case of, let's say, if you're creating some template for a car or a vehicle, okay, so car can be the template because all the cars will be having four wheels. It will be having an engine, but their features could be different. So the classes will have method and variables. Okay, so in a class in Salesforce or in Apex, just like our Java programming, which is like, I would say, like all the concepts, since we are using it from the Java. So here also, yeah, it is mentioning like class is a template for objects, and object is an instance. Now object is an instance. So what does it mean is, like, whenever you're creating any template, so templates are like, until unless you create an object out of it. That means when we like when we are using any sort of template, let's say you are having a template to create a brick. Okay, let's say you have some sort of container in which if you create a mixture of cement and whatever raw materials, and you put it into that particular box, and you tap that box and just uh, turn the box upside down, you're going to get a brick. So that container is nothing. uh, the container in which you have added that raw material to make the brick, so that container will be called as a template, because each time you are going to put the raw material into it, and you uh, put it like on just you will tap it like upside down, you're going to get a brick out of it. Okay, so it is that container from which you're getting the brick that is acting as a template, and the brick is basically the product, or it is like the real object that you have created out of the template. So that brick is basically the object in the programming world also. If there is something, some instance that you have created out of the template, those instance will be called as the objects. And if you're only having some generic template, like in this case it is a template called as car, and the objects that was created with the help of the car template, it can be a Volvo, it can be an Audi, Toyota, Maruti, multiple other objects can be created out of the template. We will look into these topics in more detail. I'll be showing you with the examples as well, but for now we are just taking an overview what all things we would be needing in the soon future, all right, while working with the programming. So if you're not getting anything, no problem, we are going to look into it in depth. Okay, so that allows now strongly typed, the variable should be having the uh, data type. It should have the strong mention the data type, that is whether it is a string, integer, number, or like date, whatever type of data it is, it has to mention. Object-oriented programming, that it is going to use the concepts of your oops. Okay, like classes, methods, uh, and all other uh, concepts which I have told, that allows the developers to execute the flow transaction control statement. Now, on your Salesforce server, we were seeing here, yeah, on your Salesforce server, whenever just yeah, on a Salesforce server, like when you are making any request from the front end, let's say if you need to save some data, a contact record data, you're taking the contact first name and last name and you're clicking on the save button. All right. So you're saving the record. So that record will pass through JavaScript, then it will pass through Apex, and then it will be saved to the database. And once it is saved to the database is going to send you the response like the record has been saved. And on the JavaScript side, it is like going to show you the message like the record has been saved successfully. All right. So this is basically the flow it is going to follow. Now, this complete flow from here, it started from here, from front end. You clicked on the save. When you clicked on the save, the process started from traveling from the HTML to JS to Apex and database, and back from database to the HTML page. This complete flow is called as a transaction, which started from your HTML page, this complete flow. So it is basically used for your transactional control statement. That's what it is saying, that allows developer to execute flow transaction control statements on the Salesforce servers. Salesforce servers, we are making use of it with the help of the Apex to communicate to the backend. All right, front end to backend, we are doing the communication. And it is also saying like in coexistence with the call to the APIs. Now, call to the APIs are of two type. While creating the objects and the fields in as an admin, we know there were some API field name, API object name. You remember when we have worked with object creation and field creation, there were field API name, there was object API name. Okay, so
Yes.
yeah, so
Yeah.
those API names, field name, and object name will be used in your Apex. So it has a significance why those API names were there. APIs are nothing but application programming interface. It's used for your programming. Okay, it's used for programming. So now that is the reason that API name was there for each and every object, each and every field to communicate. Like basically, if we need to communicate to that particular field, it should be declared with an API name. And that is the reason that we were having that API name in our all the objects and all the fields. Now, that is basically these fields and all is basically your internal APIs. Okay, you're making the communication to that particular fields. It's an internal API. Now, if you need to communicate with an external systems, okay, if you need to communicate through some external systems, so for that particular case, you will be having external APIs in which you are going to let's say if you need to send some data from Salesforce to Google or Salesforce to Facebook, so you require some external API endpoint, and through that you're going to send the data. All right. So it's basically like in coexistence with all the API calls, transaction control statement, everything, Apex will be used throughout. Okay, Apex is going to be used throughout. Now it has a structure like Java and acts as a database stored procedure. Like it will also be used to store the data, like to store the data to the database, and its syntax is just like similar to Java, and it allows developer to add the business logic to most system events. So whatever, like most of the cases, Apex is used to do some sort of customization, what you cannot achieve with the help of your non-programming tools, that is like flows, validation rules, all such things are not able to handle the things, then you will use this tools called as Apex programming. Okay, it is a tool. So as a developer, it will be one of the most powerful tool you will be working with programming. So whenever your existing out of the box tools are not working, in that particular case you are going to make use of the Apex, and this Apex is going to help you out to come out of that, to basically whatever challenge you're facing, to handle that challenge, and you can basically do any sort of handling with the help of the Apex. All right, so let's see. Yeah, strongly typed and weakly typed we have discussed briefly. Let's see, like strong type and weak type. What is the difference? So your
Ashish, I'm unable to see your that screen. I'm seeing the
oh,
diagram.
all right, hold it. Okay, just a minute. Is it visible now?
Yes.
Okay, so it's like Java. It has a Apex is having a Java-like syntax and acts as a database stored procedures. Now, database stored procedures are basically used to in all the database we have procedures which is used to store the data to the database. Okay, so in Salesforce you're having Apex will only help you out to do the database procedures. Okay, so it will help you to do database procedures, it will help you to write business logic, and it syntax is like Java. And Apex, it can be triggered by the web service request, and from triggers on any object, we're also going to execute the Apex programming. So as we will progress, Apex can be initiated by the web service request. Now, this web service request is some request which comes from an external system. Okay, so it can be initiated by the external system. Then triggers are something which gets executed on an object whenever there is a DML activity, like creation of the record, updation of the record, deletion of the record, or undeletion of the record. So create, update, delete, and undelete. In four cases, your triggers gets executed. All right. So let's see what is a strongly type and the weakly type language. Programming yeah. So strongly type, as we have seen, like Apex will be a strongly typed, and your JavaScript programming is a weakly typed language. Why it is a weakly typed? Because you can declare a variable as myvar in Java, and that variable you can store the value in string format. So string is like basically single quotes. You have to wrap the text in the single quotes. Starts with a single quotes, ends with a single quotes. And even in Java, even in sorry, and even in JavaScript, even in Apex, you have to do the same thing. Okay, now same variable myvar, if you write in next line, if you store the value as 10, it will allow you to store. You don't need to declare that variable again. Same variable if you store the value as false. So this here in this line number, it is storing some string. Okay, in this line number, it is storing integer. Okay, and in this third line, it is storing this variable as Boolean. Boolean is basically true or false. The value will be true or false. So in same variable storing three different values, it's only possible if the language is weakly typed. So in weakly typed language, you don't need to define the data type of the variable explicitly. Okay, just declare as var. In that var, you can store name also. Same variable you can use for integer also. Same variable you can use for Boolean also. Once you have stored string, then you can afterwards you can also store value as 10. It will allow. It is not going to throw you an error. Okay, the above lines of code will execute without any error. So what it is saying, the above lines of code will execute without any error. So it whenever you will execute these three lines, it will going to execute without any error. It will not throw an error. But in case of your strongly typed language like Apex, whatever value, let's say you're declared some variable as my name. You have declared this variable as my name and you store the value as James in this. So whatever value you have stored in whatever type you have declared, you cannot change the type or you cannot store the value. Like once you have stored the string should start with a single quotes and should ends with a single quote. You cannot store a number in that particular value now. My name, same variable. You cannot store numeric value in that particular variable. All right, this is the drawback, or this is basically the platform limitation of a strongly typed language. Okay, it is basically the strongly typed language. Now, in let's see what is a variable. So, yeah, what is a variables? Okay, or else we just have 15 minutes. Variables, we will look into it tomorrow. Let's see what is a system debug statement. So system debug, you're going to use in Salesforce throughout, and it will be used to print something on the screen. If you want to print something on the screen, you're going to make use of the system.debug statements. So it is going to print something on the screen, whatever you request to print on the screen. So how you will make use of this? Go to your developer console. You need to go to the developer console. Let me share full screen. Okay, so if you click on this, go to developer console. Yes, okay, I'm not logged in. Let me log in. Okay, click on gear icon, click on developer console to open the developer console window. And what I'll do is I'll just copy this URL from here. Okay, let's copy and I'll close this window. And side by side, let's keep it open this in the same browser. All right. So what I'm doing is I'm opening the developer console in the same browser side by side. Now, why it's not mandatory step. You can do it in whatever window was open, but just to keep it like side by side, I have opened it. So from here, what I'll do, from here to execute some code, you can click on this debug, go to debug, open execute anonymous window. Okay, from debug, open execute anonymous window, execute, remove this, remove the code. From here, what I'm going to write is system dot debug. Okay, and single line of code, hello world. Okay, hello world. What this line is going to do is when I execute this line, it is going to like you can execute if it is single line of code, and if you only want to select some highlighted, like you highlight some lines of code and you only want to execute those lines, there's an option called as execute highlighted in this case. And if I execute this, since it was having only single line, it doesn't matter. But if let's say 10 line of code is there, you just need to execute two lines. So you can highlight some two lines and execute highlighted. It will only execute those two lines. So in our case, only single line, I have executed it. So it should have, it's generated a log. The for log, you need to go to this log on the left side of the screen, click on that log. There is one log generated. Okay, so double click on this. And what we can do is, um, in here you're seeing debug hello world. But this hello world, if you just want to see the debug statement, there is an option here called as debug only. So if you're having any debug system.debug statement in your code, you will see only those debug statements with the help of the system debug. Okay, I'll open this execute anonymous window again. Let's copy this line, copy this, and let's say I'm having multiple hello world. Uh, I'll write some line like this is my day one into Apex. Okay, programming. All right, it's two lines, and I'm also having one more line system dot debug. Thank you. Okay, some 2 to 3 lines of code I have written, and I have, let's say if we want to execute complete code, just click directly on the execute. So since we have three debug statements now, the new log which I'm going to click, open the new log, it must be having the three debug statement. Okay, if you click on debug only. So all the debug lines it is going to display you directly. Okay. All the debugs, if you just check this checkbox, all the debug statement it is going to execute it directly. So this is anything you need to print on the screen, you will be making use of your debug statement. Now the next thing is your variables. Okay, so next thing is your variables. How you will deal with the variables and what are the variables? Let's look into it. So variables. So till here you're clear. Any questions if you want to ask, we'll take that.
No, no, Ashish, I'm clear. Like I do have the overview of all these,
Okay,
so I'm like refreshed with all that.
okay. So let's continue then. So next thing is variables. Variables, the name given to the memory location where we store the some data which is used in the program. Um so like it is in the form of a memory location. Okay, so you must have you know we have RAM and ROM in our system, right? So random access memory and ROM is read-only memory. So whenever you are working with the programmings, it is basically dependent on the RAM, that is random access memory. So whenever like you are accessing something or you're storing something during the runtime, the memory, whatever processing you're doing, whatever variables you're storing, it is getting stored in the RAM. So in the RAM, it is basically taking some sort of memory location, and it will store that particular variable on the RAM till the time your execution is happening, only till the time your execution is happening. Once your execution will happen, it is going to refresh your RAM. Okay, so let's say uh, you're running some sort of code. In your code, if you are using some sort of variables, all right, you're seeing the full screen, right? The free form
Yes.
screen. Okay, so in this case, yeah, in here, let's say this is something in the format of your RAM, okay, or memory location. Multiple memories are there. Okay, so this yellow color box, whatever you are seeing, is nothing but a different size memory um, allocated on your RAM. Okay. So like for small variable, there will be some small memories. For bigger variable, there was a bigger memories. So based on the variable size, they will be having multiple locations. Everything I cannot display, but just as an example, this is your memory, which is like which is used during your runtime. So from this memory, when you need to store some variable, you will store some variable in the name of, let's say, my name. So this my name, the memory location will be allocated to that particular variable. Somewhere here it has allocated some my name is equal to Ashish, and that value it has stored on that particular memory location. Similarly, let's say if you have a variable called as employee employee name. Okay, this is a variable. So it will get allocated to a different variable, a different memory location. Similarly, every memory location can be used to store different variables. All right, on your system memory. So this different memory locations can store some sort of data which will be used in your programs. So let's say let's say if we need to make use of the variables in your code. So what we are going to do is open any execute anonymous window, store some sort of variables. So what variables we need to store? Let's say string my name is equal to Ashish. All right. And this variable is stored. Now what I can do is I can store another variable, string my last name. My last name is equal to Kumar. Two variables, two value I have stored. I can use some sort of string functions like concatenate. Concatenate are used to add two or more strings together. So within my system dot debug statement, what I can do is I can do my name, my name plus, can add a space here, plus my last name. Okay, my name plus my last name. Now, in this case, what we have done, we have concatenated two string. First string is this one, second string is this one. Sorry, total three strings is there. And third string is just having a space. This is also string. If you write something like this without a space, this is an empty string. Okay, this is basically an empty string. If you added a space in between, this is basically a string with uh, a space. So ultimately, it should show Ashish space Kumar in the screen when we'll execute these three lines of code. So completely, execute completely. The log has got generated. If you click on debug only, okay, it is showing me the name with an added space that I have done concatenation. So this is basically an example of a concatenation, string concatenation. All right. Now, if you're dealing with any sort of variables, okay, any sort of variables like string, you can store the variables in string format also, right? So string variable one, where one is equal to, so if it is a string, it should start with a single quotes, end with a single quotes in uh, apex. All right. Now I stored this value as 1000, and I have another value string where 2, where 2 variable. So these are basically we are making use of the variables to store the value, and this value is equal to 2000. Okay. So what we can do is system.debug, system.debug 100, sorry, var1, var1 plus var2, if we will do, what will be the output of line number 8? Can you make a guess? What will be the output of line number 8?
I don't think that it will be the addition, but variable one.
It won't be a addition. Okay, very
Yes,
good. So
because
it
that
won't
is
be
a
a variable.
string.
Yeah, it won't be a addition. So
It will be like 1,000 and 1,000 separate. 1,000, 2,000.
1000, 2000. So it will be in the format of like 1 000,
1,000 and 2,000.
2 000. Okay, very good. So this will be basically your output, because system will not understand this as a numeric value. Even though it is a numeric value, it will not understand. It will only understand what type of variable you have declared. So this variable is of string type. So it will only understand that it is a string. It doesn't, so a system or programming by itself is not smart. It is very dumb. So it will, how you are making use of it is basically the developer's choice. So this variable one, we are storing 1000. It is like string and string. So it will understand it as string. When you do var1 plus var2, it is going to display the value like this. Okay. Let's highlight this and execute only this part. Execute highlighted. Okay. So what it is doing here, execute highlighted, debug only, whatever is 1000, 2000. Now, if you need to convert this in the format of, if you have to convert this in the format of an integer, so what we will do? What you have to do?
We have to write integer var1 and integer var2 and without the inverted commas.
Yeah, that is one way. Absolutely. Integer integer, uh, integer var1 is equal to 1000, and integer var2 is equal to 2000. Okay, and then you can do the same thing. System.debug here. It will, when it will execute, it is going to show you the result as 3000 now. Debug only. Value is 3000. Okay, but string value, if you need to convert directly to the variable, you can convert with the help of, there is a function called as integer dot value of. Okay, integer dot value of. This is a function of an integer that also you can convert. Integer dot value one. Yeah, now integer dot value one, and this will be integer dot value of, and whatever is the variable, just wrap it in the bracket. All right, now your, this line number 8, these variables were string, but we converted into the integer. We converted into the integer with this function, integer dot value of and integer dot value of. So this will no more show the value as 100, 1000, or 2000. It will it should show you the value as 3000 now. Okay, let's execute and experience it. Execute highlighted. Okay, double click the logs and debug only. Click on debug only. So the latest log, we have just opened the latest log, 2213. Okay, and the latest log says the value is 3000. This is happening because we converted some value from integer, sorry, string to integer with the help of the uh, string was integer value. Sorry, this string value we converted to the integer with the help of this function. Similarly, you can also convert a value which is in the integer format to string. Okay, so in this case, what you will do? If you need to convert an integer value to string, you need to make use of string dot
Lot of value.
value of. Okay, string dot value of. And here also string dot value of. If you make use of this, any string value you will be able to convert to integer. Any integer value you are going to change it into a string with the help of this. Now I am executing line number 10, 11, and 12. Execute highlighted. It will no more show you the value as this. Whatever uh, log is not read, it is going to show you unread. Okay, so I'm going to double click this blue color. Okay, and going to read the debug only. Now integer value to string value it has converted. All right, so this is how you are making use of conversions within your variables from string to integer, integer to strings, and there are multiple other possibilities. So like anytime you need to parse something or convert something from one base to other, you need to make use of its methods. All right, so for today I think that's it. You can experiment your debug console, developer console with system.debug statements. Okay, I can practice it in your org. So development will be completely relying on whatever you are practicing in your orgs. Okay, so it will be completely dependent on how much you're practicing you're going to get. So at least what I recommend is like minimum 30 minutes of some practice, whatever random practice you're doing for next 3 months, 2 months, 2 to 3 months, you need to do it on yourself. At least you should have that dedicated 30 minutes minimum I'm saying. Okay, so it will give you a good confidence after a month or 2 months when you will be like completing the course. You should be in a good position to like work in any organization with that practice. Anyone can learn coding with that minimum of 30 minutes of. So that's a natural science which says like if you're doing something for 20 minutes for next 6 months, okay, you will be better than 80 to 90% of people in that particular field. Okay, but you have to be consistent for that 20 minutes for the next 6 months. So similarly, if you can do it something like for 30 minutes for next 3 months, you will also be in a good position and you can continue to keep up. But yeah, just dedicate yourself um, for 30 minutes. All right. So thank you, Tashneem. We'll end the session for today and let's continue tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow I
Okay.
don't know whether I'll be there, but yeah, if there is like canceling, I will be letting you know in the evening.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.